Have you ever thought of your child's speech as different? And you wonder if it's normal or if possibly they have a delay. How do you develop your child through their issues when you aren't sure that they actually have some issues? And how do you push for what you think your child might need when you aren't sure if they need anything at all? Today's guest will share her journey of being brave to find out what was going on with her son and what she did in the presence of her school being busy and overburdened. Her learned wisdom and guidance will support you in your next choices so you can support your child with love. You're going to enjoy this episode with Krista Melanson. Does your child have a speech-language delay and you really want them to talk? Do difficult behaviors derail home life and you know the frustration is a communication struggle? Does your child see a speech therapist and you wonder, what do they do and how can I help? If these or similar questions are in your mind, this podcast is for you. Hello, my name is Dina Lynn Rosenbush. I am a speech-language pathologist that has worked with children from birth to 21 for 3 decades. And in my classrooms, I see you wanting to connect with the heart of your child, but their speech and language skills create a barrier. So if you have a kiddo that has difficult behaviors, needs to expand their language or learn to say speech sounds, and maybe even receives speech therapy, stay tuned. Because in this podcast, you will learn how to use your daily life as a tool to communication practice and how to do that practice. You will become confident knowing you are making the difference you want to make. And you will hear success stories of parents who have navigated these struggles already. We'll do this all while focusing on building deep, meaningful connection and confidence in your kiddo. So grab a cup of coffee along with a notebook and pen. It's time to speak in the way your child's brain understands. And that is the language of play. Hey listeners, in the last episode, you learned that I contributed to a book titled The Other Side of Divorce: Breakups That Lead to Breakthroughs. And I wrote about having children in this situation of divorce. So anyway, I am pleased to tell you that we reached #1 international bestseller on Amazon last week. So thank you to all of you that ordered a book. You helped us get to that status. So that's super fun. And anybody else that is wanting some support during a time of divorce, here is a fabulous resource because it helps you think about what happens on the other side. I remember in my divorce, I thought, will I ever get to the other side? Is there another side? And what about these kids? Will they be okay? And in that period of grief and trauma, sometimes it's hard to think about the other side. But this book is focused on what is possible. The link to the book is still in the show notes for you to get if you or somebody you know could use the encouragement because they are dealing with a divorce. The next topic is episode 199. Can you believe it? It's hard for me to realize that this is 199 episodes. I hope you have felt so encouraged, so enriched, so poured into over these episodes. I hope that you feel like you have gained a lot and you know many strategies and techniques that you can implement with your kiddos, and also how you can change your own mindset in order to be the parent you want to be. Now, if today is episode 199, the next episode is a milestone. It is episode 200. So I welcome you to come back for episode 200 because there will be surprises. There will be some kind of celebration that you will not want to miss. Also in the show notes is that same freebie that I built because of being at PodFest, which is titled 5 Ways to Get Your Kids to Listen Better. Grab that. And then we'll get into today's pre-recorded episode with Krista Melanson. Hello, listeners. Today we have the mother of 3 mostly grown kids, a chef, a relationship coach, and partner. She enjoys the fun and adventures of parenting and living life to the fullest with food, travel, and lots of love. She is a mom with a success story that we are going to hear about today. She also has been through the ringer like a lot of you are right now. So, Krista, thank you for being here on The Language of Play and sharing your mothering story and the success that you've had with your kiddos.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this. My kids are always my favorite topic.
As most of us mamas, our kids are definitely our big topics. Now, let's back up and tell the parents why it is you thought we would be a good conversation. Because when you approached me, at first I was thinking, no, we're not going to talk about food on this podcast. That's not what my podcast is. But then I realized you have a story that is related to childhood developmental delays. Can you lean into that?
Absolutely. I, like you said, am the mother of three, and my youngest, JJ, was, I guess from an early age, he started to have speech issues. And talk about radically different children. There's JJ on one hand, and my two girls, Riley and Paris, were so different growing up and right from the get-go. And personality and just everything is so different about them. But JJ was different when he started to learn and he started to speak, and his speech was, I'm not sure at the time that I knew it was delayed. I just knew it was different and possibly an issue. He had a lot of, problems pronouncing regular words, like a computer was a purye and dessert was bilert. And, when he would talk to me or his dad or his sisters, it was difficult to understand him. So I decided that we needed to get some help in terms of speech therapist for him. And so we did that. And the speech therapist was good with him and taught him, the vowel sounds, and taught him to be really much more conscious about when he's talking, because most of us, blah, 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 and we don't think about what we're saying. He didn't have that ability.
Right.
So he had to think and formulate the words a little bit better.
So he probably had to slow down quite a bit.
He did.
And he had to probably learn how to train his ears to listen to you differently. Yes,
exactly. Yep. So, and all of us had to learn, right? It wasn't just learning. Obviously, all of us had to learn. And funny story, my middle daughter, Paris, his sister, used to translate for him, but she just makes stuff up. So it wasn't really, he'd be saying something and she'd say, JJ says he wants to have a peanut butter sandwich. And I said, actually, Paris, I think what he's saying is he wants to go to the bathroom, but thank you. And she's just
there's real family life, right?
Right, exactly.
You said that you all have things to learn. What did you have to learn?
Patience was a big thing that I had to learn, because I'm not big on patience, and I understand that's my flaw, one of them. And
we all have many, but we are a work in progress. So let's not say it's your flaw. Let's say it's what you're working on.
Exactly. It's one of the things but one of the things he used to do is he used to breathe in the middle of a word or a sentence. Mm-hmm. And like he'd say, today I went to the park to go for a walk, and he'd have a big breath like that in the middle of a sentence. And I found it frustrating, because I was like, JJ, just stop and breathe. And, because I hadn't experienced this and the girls hadn't, this was my first experience. And I totally understand that I was not always as patient as I should have been. But I love my kids to the end of the earth. So I think that in the end, that was how it played out. But it was really hard to learn to get used to even translating in my own mind and understanding these idiosyncrasies of his speech, which was so different from ours.
When you say that it was an idiosyncrasy, do you think of it as something that was, at the time, did you think of it as something that was going to stay an idiosyncratic thing about him? Or did you think of it as something that, man, we need to fix this? man, we need to change this?
Um, I think with just the general speech problems, I yeah, definitely something to change, but not in a bad way, like not force change. We had to help him grow.
Yeah,
It's yeah.
develop
So
through. Mm-hmm.
exactly. And that was it. With the breathing thing, and especially because that came a little bit later, I wondered, wondered, worried, whatever, that he would ever speak fluidly the way
Mm-hmm.
we do. And it's funny because now I look back and I can barely remember it. And it seems he's just a normal walking, talking 18-year-old boy. Not a lot of interesting things to say sometimes. He speaks perfectly now.
I'm so glad to have you say that to the audience. He speaks perfectly now. That is beautiful. I'm really glad, and I think, audience, that that would be of encouragement to you that yes, even though we have hiccups and bumps along the way, and our kids can pick up some idiosyncrasies in their speech patterns, that over time, with effort, energy, work, and patience, they will grow. But it
Absolutely.
does take that effort, energy, work, and patience, doesn't it? Did he
Definitely.
did he have a diagnosis along the way?
Well, in terms of speech, if he had one, I don't remember it. When he went to school, oh, I guess with the speech, his speech therapist said that he was doing fine. He was just progressing slower than normal. So it wasn't that she said, I don't see any major problems in his speech. It's just very much delayed
Okay.
in his development.
And
When he went to,
that's like your best diagnosis. I just want you to know that. That is
okay,
like the best thing. So they're just coming along a little bit slower, but they're coming along in a good form.
yeah,
That is good. When you say something like this breathing thing, my first thought was, "Oh, do we have some neurologic motor problems?" And we would call that like childhood apraxia of speech or something where the muscles, the breathing, the mouth, the tongue, the lips don't move in coordination.
okay,
And that is a bigger diagnosis and one that takes more time. But that's a different
interesting.
topic for today. But I'm really glad for you that delay. And so anybody else in the audience, if you're getting the diagnosis of delay and there's nothing else attached to it, just count your blessings. It just takes time, effort, and
Yeah,
diligence.
definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so keep going with your story.
So when he went to school, he was still having problems in, a variety of different ways at school. Um, I could tell he was a smart kid, right? He was asked me to make him fried rice one day, and I said, "Do you want onions in it?" And he said, "I want onions," but he said, "I want them small, like really small." And I said, "Okay." He said, "Small, like that bomb they dropped in Japan." And I'm like an atom? He goes, "Yeah, that's it." And I'm like, you know, things are going on in his head, but he can't
Yeah.
always get them out. So in grade 1 or 2, I'm very grateful because his dad's a teacher, so he was able to sort of encourage things along. Um, but the lesson I would say is that if your child is having issues, to definitely push for it, because if you wait for them to come to you, they're not. The school system's overwhelmed. But we had a psych eval done for him and found out that he also had a learning disability. So that compounded with that. I wanted to get him a tutor right away, and his dad was resistant because he was a teacher. And I think he really just wanted to believe that his peers were going to find the right program for him. But
Mm,
again, the schools are overwhelmed. There's so many different kids, and they can't always get the adaptations, as quickly as we would like them to. So
sure.
I took him to a private tutor. And at first, his dad was very much resistant. But I said, he needs this. And I was so grateful because the tutor I got for him also had speech training.
Oh, nice.
So she worked on all of these things with him. And it was like the difference between night and day for this young boy. He started to have more confidence. The teacher said it was amazing in school because he would be helping the other kids. It was just a huge growing experience, but the speech along with the learning disability just sort of put him on the back foot from an early age. And he just needed that much more love and attention to help him grow and learn to
Sure.
the person that he has become.
Very good. I'm glad that you got that assessment. I know that you are right that the schools are often overwhelmed by the time that we, as a school staff, because I've worked in the schools for many, many years too, and by the time that we come to you, parent, and say, we want to assess your child, we have had to go through documentation of failure for a period of time. This is the law. We are
Yeah.
required to do that before we initiate an assessment. But parents can, at least in my state. What state are you in?
I'm in Canada.
Oh, you're in Canada. Okay, and I'm in Minnesota in the United States.
Okay.
And so if you want an evaluation, you simply say, I really want this evaluation, and you have the right to request it. And so if your gut says, I really think that there's a problem in this area, there's criteria that need to be met, which means your child has to be low enough to qualify. And then there's those situations where they may or may not. But I have to credit you, my goodness, Krista, you followed your gut. And I really, really believe in a mother's intuition, a
Yeah,
mother's
definitely.
gut feeling. And I always advocate that mother follows her gut. And if she really has this sense that we need a tutor, we need a coach, we need support in this area, do it, do it, do it. And earlier the better. So kudos for you for being brave, even in the presence of not having full support in the school that you wanted, not having full support in the home from your husband that you wanted, but you were able to see it and act on it. That's hard.
Yeah.
That's really hard. So I'm patting you on the back for your courage.
Thank you. I think we all share, like you said earlier about, believing in our kids. We all share this sort of blind passion to help our kids get ahead. I think what stops us sometimes is just, human nature, not wanting to be a burden or not wanting to annoy or pester somebody. But when it comes to your child, you have to be their advocate. You have to be the one standing up and down and going, we need help. There's something going on. And your instinct, like you said, your instinct is enough. If you think there's something wrong, start asking those questions.
Yes, embrace the mama bear.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
You know, that's a phrase for a reason, and it is powerful and it is important. And I really do believe that we need to do that. You said blind passion to get our kids ahead. I love that. That's a beautiful phrase.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, I've done it in various ways. My oldest daughter had hearing issues. And again, her dad was like, well, I think she's fine. And it was just tonsils and adenoids, but she did, I sort of said, we need to get her tested. We need to get her tested. And she did. They said she heard as if she had her finger stuck in each ear. So your instinct is enough, I think. And how many parents, you've probably heard parents say this too. You hear parents say, you know what, I kind of thought there was an issue, but I thought, they just weren't paying attention or they just weren't this or that. And then they're kicking themselves later for not acting on it. So yeah, you have to act when you see something. And it would be better to act too soon and it turns out to be nothing than leave it too late and it's something.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think sometimes people don't, well, I shouldn't say it that way. I've seen parents, not just that I think this happens, I've seen it happen, that parents don't want to, like you say, use the resources, use the time, be a bother, because if the child doesn't qualify, it was a waste of time.
Right.
I want to discredit that whole thinking at this moment too, because if you get a score on these tests, let's say, our tests are scored, I'm just going to use one type of scoring. There's all kinds of different scorings, but let's say one type of scoring is where 100 is considered average and your child scores a 75. And in my state, a 75 isn't going to qualify for services. But you did get significant information that your child is struggling in area X, Y, and Z. And then you can do something about that because you know exactly what it is you're looking for. Maybe you'll find the tutor, maybe you'll find a coach like me, maybe you'll find somebody else that has the skills to help your child along in that area. The other thing to do is wait until they do get low enough. And I don't know that that's the best choice.
No, and there are organizations that give you free tutoring, right? If you qualify for them. And that was one of the things that we did for JJ. We went to the Scottish Rite. I don't even know what they're really called. That's what it was. But they've got a couple different names, but we went and got him into that program too, which didn't cost anything. And that helped with the speech and the learning disability as well. So it all kind of brought it along. So if you search for resources, there are resources to get help. And like you said, if your child is at the point where, according to the school system or the state or the province or whatever, they don't qualify, there are ways to get help before they get to that sort of critical low.
Yeah. All right. On switching gears for a little bit. When we talked last time, we talked about his speech and JJ's speech, and using hand gestures. Wasn't necessarily sign language, but how well that impacted his memory, and that oral motor movement and hand gesture that together helped him develop speech. Would you like to take that and run?
I will.
It's a great story.
I'll be honest, I can't remember a lot of what the gestures were, but what they were doing is when they were teaching him with his speech, they would teach him the sounds for the words, and they'd have gestures to remind him. So like when he was saying like happy, put your hand out as if there's an apple in it, and it would remind him apple. So the sound was ah. And he had a few of these that we would use. And when he was struggling with the word, I would put my hand out or do whatever the gesture was that the therapist taught us. And that would remind him of the sound that he was to make when he was pronouncing that word. And that worked really well. And then after a while, he'd sort of stumble a bit, and I'd put my hand out and go, yes, mother, I know. But that was a huge help for us in helping to remind him how to pronounce words and to get his speech right. And I apologize that I can't remember what all the hand gestures were, but there were gestures for different vowels and different consonants that were to remind him of a word.
Right.
And it was very, very helpful for him. He found that was he didn't think of it in terms of this is really helping. It just, we saw the difference in how he learned and how he progressed when we had these ways to remind him. Because as parents, we don't have the teaching skills. We don't know a lot of what you guys, the experts, know. So we're kind of stumbling along sometimes. And this was really such a powerful tool that our speech therapist gave us to remind him how to pronounce the words.
I love it. And I can explain this one a little bit. So you've got a set of symbols, and I know a set to a song. So the kids and I will go through making our hand gestures with our sounds, not necessarily the letter, because sometimes the letter has more than one sound, right? Like vowels, you've got more than one sound. You've got A and you've got A, for example, but there's more. You've got T, you've got H, you've got TH, right? You've got different sounds. So the hand gestures will be with a sound, and the sound is in your mouth, but the hand gesture is something that helps you remember motorically. That would be like, where do you put your muscles? Where do you put your tongue? Where are your teeth? Where, like, how do you put your mouth position? How do you use your muscles to be able to make that sound? So for example, a TH is going to be you're biting your tongue and you're blowing out air. So that would be the motor movement of it, right? You're biting your tongue and you're blowing out air. But to describe it in words is going to be too difficult. But if you give the hand gesture and they start to pair the hand gesture and they see the hand gesture, they automatically have movement, and movement is research-based to enhance memory. So then the position where they put their tongue and what they do with the airflow will suddenly trigger the memory, and then it comes faster to them. So yeah, it's the simplest ever strategy, but when you get fluid at it as a parent, it's amazing how quickly your children rush through certain sounds. And really, you probably only needed it with the sounds that were tricky.
Yeah, definitely.
It also is really helpful with reading.
You're right. And it seems simple, but it's only simple once you know it. And
Like a
you know,
computer.
right. But when you're thinking about it, it's like, oh, this is so difficult. How can I help and support my child? But when you have tools like that, it just makes it, you feel relieved as a parent, and the child learns and they get better, which gives them more confidence. And there's just, yeah, it's just an amazing situation,
Right.
amazing process.
I'm glad you did that. And you also learned that he was a hands-on learner.
Definitely.
How did you learn that?
Because he used to roll around the classroom on the floor and not pay attention to anything. But another thing that I learned with his dad being a teacher, and one of the in-service that he went to, is that a lot of the school system in the early years is really designed around girls,
Mm,
because boys tend to be more hands-on. They want the trucks and they want to look out the window and see the lawnmower. And the girls are happy to sit in the classroom and cut and color or whatever. And I'm very dumbing this down a lot. I totally understand that. And so for a boy to be in that environment is not always the most productive in the first place. But JJ was, because of his learning disability, which we didn't understand at first when he went to school, and his speech issues. So he sort of kind of felt on the outside sometimes. Um, he could get bored very easily. But when they gave him a task to do that involved hands-on, just about anything, put all these blocks here, he was that kid who was such a good helper, right? You'd say, pick up all those booklets and bring them over here. And he would do that because he had action. But sit him down and get him to try and read or learn, his alphabet or whatever, he really struggled with that. So
mm,
we understood early on that action was something that he needed to do, hands on. And I think I told you the other day, when he graduated from high school, I called the school and said, should we go to convocation? Because we didn't know if he was going to graduate, because it was high school, especially, is just sitting in a classroom and listening to somebody. And then after high school, he started at community college taking heavy equipment repair, and he's at the top of his class. He loves it. And interestingly enough, the teacher understands that he wants to go and he wants to do this stuff. And so sometimes when they're in a group, he'll say, JJ, if you want to go work on that truck by yourself, go ahead. And he'll just go over and he goes and does all the things. So like I said earlier, he's a smart kid, but he doesn't learn, act, and participate the same way as everybody else. And it's learning what works best for your child, which is not always easy, but it's learning what's best for them, and even making your own adaptations at home. If they don't do them in school, you find ways to help them make it more interesting for them.
right. That's very good. And even if they do the adaptations in the school, doing your adaptations at home is huge because that's what you can control.
You can support your learning no matter what. That's right.
Exactly. Well done. I'm proud of you.
Thank
That
you.
was not an easy journey, and you have done it with flying colors. Now,
Thank you.
before I let you go, what, if you were to summarize one tip for parents, what would be what you think is one of the most important points that you've made today, or another one?
I'm going to give you two because I'm
Okay.
just like that. One is,
Good.
of course, of course, of course, support your child with love no matter what happens. But I think it's really important to push for what you think your child needs, and don't sit back waiting for an overcrowded, overtaxed school system to come to you. And especially that makes a difference depending on what area and what school you're in. If you happen to be at a school with children who have, a higher number of kids who have learning disabilities or speech delays, it's going to be harder to get to those kids when there's more of them. We were lucky to be in the school that didn't have as many kids that had issues. So that helped us too. But just push for what your child needs. Don't ever be afraid of being difficult or complaining or obnoxious or whatever. The squeaky wheel really does get the grease. Push for your child because you are their advocate, their number one most important advocate.
Yes, I agree with you completely. And I worked in the school. So parents, if you're worried about having the school get bothered with you, I worked in the school for 30 years. I know that I love it when a parent comes forward and they say, this is what I think we need. And I can work with that parent to try to figure out what is going to work best. And when a parent comes and really expresses what they really want and we can hash it out, then I also feel like, oh, I can go back and tell that parent, we tried this and this and this. Do you have any idea how we can adapt it differently because it didn't work, or it did work, or try this at home because today it worked in school, or, to go back and forth and generate that relationship where you can. I loved it. So I do advocate that. Absolutely.
And teachers are there because they love teaching kids and they want to make a difference in the world, right? So they may be overwhelmed and they may be busy, but it doesn't mean they don't care. And anytime you can help them help a child, they feel that tremendous sense of accomplishment as well as the parents, right? I don't think any teacher wants to see their student fail. They want to see their students succeed too. So like you said, if you can work together, it just makes it better for everybody.
Right. It is such a satisfying and fulfilling thing to work with a parent and watch the children flourish. Yeah. That teamwork, because you're both putting the best of your own resources and the best of your own knowledge into the same pot and stirring it up and coming up with your own concoction for that particular student. It is a beautiful feeling and it's fun to watch. Definitely. All right. Now, before I let you go, I would like you also to tell people a little bit about your business, which is totally unrelated to child development, but it is super cool. So take a couple of minutes, tell about yourself and your own business, and then we will close.
Well, it's not related to child development, but it really is related to the family unit. I'm a cordon bleu trained chef, and I'm also a relationship coach. And I decided to bring these two passions of mine together and create the relationship coach. So I help committed couples connect through the love language of food. And I think it's so important in a lot of ways, right? People get busy and they don't have time for their partners and time to keep the romance alive or whatever. And a big thing I hear is people saying, well, I've got young kids, we'll just put our relationship on the back burner. And then when they're grown and we have more time, we'll do that. But I think it's really important to make that time for your partner and that adult time, even when your kids are young, because a healthy, happy parent and a great relationship is a better parent.
Fantastic. Well said. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your time and your energy and your story. Your story is important, and I know that it will impact a lot of people's lives who listen. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me on your show. It was lovely to talk to you.
Hey parents, I hope you found this episode helpful. If so, would you please take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who also lives or works with children? I would really appreciate it if you would leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. I read every review, and it lights me up to know that this show is making a difference. Then come join my Facebook community, where you'll meet other parents who are dedicated to helping their children grow too. You'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you for joining me. Now it's time to go. Let's pop our kiddos in the strollers and go look around outdoors and see what we have to talk about.